7 survivors vanished from their normal lives in different decades, leaving families shattered and communities searching for answers. But years later, these remarkable individuals emerge not as victims, but as powerful advocates who transform their trauma into hope for millions around the world. From a teenage girl who convinced her kidnapper to release her through friendship, to 3 women who escaped after a decade in captivity and now run missing persons organizations, to a young mother who survived 18 years of imprisonment and turned her experience into a foundation that helps other families. These are the extraordinary journeys of people who refuse to let their darkest moments define their futures. What separates those who survive the unthinkable from those who do not? What transforms a victim into a victor, a captive into an advocate, a traumatized individual into a beacon of hope for others? According to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, more than 359,000 children were reported missing in 2022 alone. Of those cases, the vast majority involved family abductions or runaways, but approximately 27% were taken by strangers or acquaintances, cases that often involve physical or sexual assault during captivity. The statistics are sobering. Most who disappear under these circumstances never return home alive. Those who do often struggle for years, even decades, to rebuild their lives. Mental health professionals note that complex trauma from prolonged captivity can create lasting effects that require intensive therapy and support. Yet among these survivors exists a remarkable subset of individuals who have not merely survived, they have thrived. They have taken their experiences, however horrific, and transformed them into missions that help others. They have become authors, advocates, foundation leaders, journalists, and voices for the voiceless. Today, we follow 7 such individuals whose names became household words during their disappearances, but whose current lives tell even more powerful tales of human resilience. These are people who have chosen to step forward, to speak out, and to ensure that their suffering serves a greater purpose. Their paths to healing look different. Some work in media, others run non-profits, some write books, and others prefer quieter lives focused on family. But they share common threads, an unbreakable will to survive, the ability to find meaning in suffering, and the determination to help others navigate similar challenges. These are their current chapters, not the endings of their traumatic experiences, but the beginnings of their contributions to the world. In May of 2013, the world watched in amazement as 3 women emerged from a Cleveland house after a decade in captivity. Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight had become household names during their disappearances between 2002 and 2004. Today, more than 10 years after their rescue, each has carved a unique path forward. Amanda Berry was 17 when she vanished after leaving her job at a Burger King in Cleveland. Now in her late 30s, she has become one of the most recognizable advocates for missing persons in America. Every weekday morning, viewers of Fox 8 in Cleveland tune in to watch Berry host a segment called Missing, where she spotlights cases of people who have disappeared in Northeast Ohio. The choice to work in media was deeply personal for Berry. During her captivity, her kidnapper allowed her to watch television, including news segments about people searching for her. She realized how crucial media coverage could be in keeping missing persons cases alive in the public consciousness. I hope we get faces of missing people out there and get people looking at them a second time, a third time, and looking at their name, Berry explained to reporters. It is kind of the small things that makes a big difference. Berry approaches her work with the unique perspective of someone who understands both sides of a missing person case, the anguish of the families left behind, and the hope that sustains those who are gone. She carefully selects cases, often focusing on individuals whose disappearances have not received widespread attention. Beyond her media work, Berry has rebuilt her personal life with remarkable normalcy. She is raising the daughter she gave birth to during captivity, now a teenager herself. Berry has found love again, something she once thought impossible after her traumatic experiences. "I never thought I was going to be able to trust and love somebody," Berry shared in a television interview. "This is my first real boyfriend. I know it sounds crazy at the age of 36, but I am just so happy. It is nice to have a normal life sometimes." Her daughter recently celebrated her 16th birthday, the same age Berry was when she was captured, with a large Sweet 16 party, something Berry always wanted to provide for her child. Berry focuses on giving her daughter normalcy and supporting her in everything she wants to pursue. Gina DeJesus, building support system. Gina DeJesus was 14 when she disappeared while walking home from school in Cleveland. Now in her 30s, she has channeled her experience into creating systematic support for families of missing persons. In 2018, DeJesus launched the Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children and Adults, a non-profit organization that addresses a gap she experienced firsthand. When her own family was searching for her, they struggled with the practical aspects of mounting a search campaign, creating flyers, managing media attention, coordinating with law enforcement, and maintaining their own physical and emotional health during the crisis. "I want to help families because my family did not have anything. They did not get help," DeJesus explained. "My parents did not have people actually helping them do the flyers and stuff. We could actually help other families with all of that instead of them worrying and freaking out." What began as an early-stage concept has evolved into a comprehensive operation. The Cleveland Family Center worked with 58 families in 2022 alone, providing everything from practical assistance with search efforts to emotional support during the waiting period. The organization focuses on serving the families of missing people by helping them create flyers, acting as a liaison between media and police, and checking in on families to ensure they are eating, sleeping, and taking care of themselves during what is often the most stressful period of their lives. DeJesus and her family also travel around the country to train law enforcement on how to engage with families of missing persons. Her presence brings a unique perspective that no textbook or training manual can provide. "It is like she brings that one message of hope that, you know what, there is a chance," explained Newburgh Heights Police Chief John Majoy, who works with DeJesus through the missing center. "She just brings that electric charge with her, and nobody else can do that." DeJesus has chosen to maintain a relatively private personal life, living quietly with her tight-knit family in the suburbs of Cleveland. Her parents sit on the board of directors of the Cleveland Family Center, making her advocacy work a true family mission. Michelle Knight, from survivor to advocate. Michelle Knight was 21 when she was kidnapped, making her the oldest of the 3 Cleveland survivors. Today she goes by the name Lily Rose Lee and has become an author, public speaker, and advocate for multiple causes close to her heart. Lee has written 2 memoirs about her experiences. Her first book, Finding Me, became a New York Times bestseller in 2014. Her second memoir, Life After Darkness, published in 2018, focused more on her recovery process and the relationship she built after her rescue. "The whole world had heard the account of how I had been damaged by a filthy older man," she wrote in her second book. "Who would ever want me after that?" The answer came through social media, where she connected with Miguel Rodriguez, a medical courier. They married on May 6, 2016, the 3rd anniversary of her freedom from Castro's house. The timing was intentional, transforming a date associated with trauma into one celebrating love and new beginnings. Lee has expanded her advocacy beyond her own experience to include animal rescue work. She launched a foundation called Lily's Ray of Hope, which supports women and girls who are victims of domestic violence, human trafficking, and child abuse. The foundation provides resources for women to restart their lives after traumatic experiences. She has also become deeply involved with fostering rescue animals, seeing parallels between her own experience and that of animals who have suffered abuse. "God put me on this earth for a purpose, and I believe the purpose was to help animals and humans connect in a special way," Lee explained. "They mimic and feel everything that you are going through, so when you are sad and you are distraught, they come up, they give you kisses, they show you how beautiful life can truly be." In 2023, Lee launched Unleashed Animal Rescue, expanding her advocacy to include a more direct focus on animal welfare. "Ever since I was a little girl, I always wanted to take care of animals, especially with my traumatic past with my childhood, and what I went through in the House of Horrors. I endured watching countless, sweet, precious animals being abused by Ariel Castro. They were starved, beaten, and left for dead," Lee shared. "So I am standing up and being a voice for these precious animals. I found that when I was helping animals, in return, animals were helping me." Lee travels globally as a public speaker, sharing her experience with audiences who often include other survivors of trauma. She has partnered with specialty coffee maker 319 Company to showcase her artwork and raise money for her foundation. The collective impact. Together, these 3 women have created a network of support that extends far beyond Cleveland. Their individual efforts complement each other. Berry keeps missing persons cases in the public eye. DeJesus provides practical support to searching families, and Lee offers resources for long-term recovery from trauma. Their shared experience has created an unbreakable bond, but they have consciously chosen different paths forward rather than remaining permanently linked by their trauma. This decision reflects a sophisticated understanding of healing, recognizing that recovery often requires building new identities separate from victimhood. 22 years have passed since 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was taken from her bedroom in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today, she stands as one of the most recognized voices in child safety advocacy, having transformed her 9 months of captivity into a lifelong mission to protect others. Building a media career. Smart currently works as a correspondent for ABC News, bringing her unique perspective to cases involving missing children and child safety issues. Her journalism career began with Crime Watch Daily, where she covered true crime cases with the insight that only a survivor can provide. Her transition into media was not accidental. During her captivity, Smart observed how media coverage affected public awareness of her case. She understood the power of storytelling and the responsibility that comes with that platform. "I have been on both sides of this," Smart explained in interviews about her media work. "I know what it feels like to be the missing person, and I know what it feels like to be the family member searching. That gives me a perspective that I hope helps tell these cases in a way that honors everyone involved." Smart approaches her journalism with careful consideration for the families involved. She avoids sensationalizing trauma while still maintaining the public interest necessary to keep cases active. Her reporting often focuses on the investigation process, the impact on families, and the broader implications for child safety. Author and educator. Smart has written 2 books that have reached international audiences. Her first memoir, My Account, published in 2013, detailed her experience of kidnapping and recovery. Her second book, Where There's Hope, Healing, Moving Forward, and Never Giving Up, published in 2018, focused on the recovery process and offered guidance for others dealing with trauma. Her writing style is direct and honest without being exploitative. She shares difficult details when they serve an educational purpose but avoids gratuitous descriptions of violence. Her books have been praised by mental health professionals for their realistic portrayal of trauma recovery as a long-term process rather than a quick resolution. "Recovery is not a destination," Smart wrote in her second book. "It is a journey that continues every day. Some days are harder than others, but each day forward is a victory." Beyond her books, Smart regularly speaks at conferences, universities, and events focused on child safety. Her presentations often include practical advice for parents, educators, and law enforcement professionals. International advocacy. In 2011, Smart moved to Paris to serve as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This experience broadened her perspective on child safety issues globally and informed her later advocacy work. She has since worked with international organizations focused on combating human trafficking and child exploitation. Her advocacy extends beyond the United States to include support for survivors worldwide. Smart serves on multiple advisory boards for organizations focused on child safety and trauma recovery. She has been instrumental in supporting legislation that improves how law enforcement responds to child abduction cases. Family life and personal growth. Smart married Matthew Gilmore in 2012, and they have 3 children together. She has been open about the challenges of building intimate relationships after trauma, and her honesty about this process has helped other survivors understand that healing affects all aspects of life. "I worried that my experience would somehow contaminate my relationships," Smart shared in interviews. "But I learned that the people who truly love you do not see you as damaged. They see you as strong for having survived." Smart carefully balances her public advocacy with her private family life. She is selective about media appearances and speaking engagements, prioritizing her role as a mother while maintaining her commitment to helping others. The Elizabeth Smart Foundation. Smart established a foundation focused on child safety education and survivor support. The foundation provides resources for families dealing with child abduction cases and supports research into trauma recovery. The foundation also funds educational programs that teach children about personal safety without creating excessive fear. Smart believes in empowering children with knowledge while maintaining their ability to trust and engage with the world. "We cannot protect our children by making them afraid of everything," Smart explained about her foundation's approach. "We protect them by giving them the tools they need to recognize dangerous situations and the confidence to seek help when they need it." Current perspective. 2 decades after her rescue, Smart maintains that her experience, while traumatic, does not define her entire life. She views her advocacy work as one part of a full existence that includes career success, family happiness, and personal growth. "I am a kidnapping survivor, but I am also a journalist, a mother, a wife, and many other things," Smart reflected in a recent interview. The experience shaped me, but it did not limit me. If anything, it showed me how much strength I have, and how much I want to use that strength to help others. Smart continues to work with fellow survivors, including those featured in this account. She maintains that survivor networks are crucial for long-term healing and effective advocacy. Jaycee Dugard was 11 years old when Philip and Nancy Garrido kidnapped her from a bus stop in South Lake Tahoe, California. After 18 years in captivity, she was rescued in 2009. Today, more than 15 years after her rescue, Dugard has built a life focused on helping other families navigate the trauma of having a missing loved one. The Jaycee Foundation. Dugard established the Jaycee Foundation to provide support and resources for families whose children have been abducted or are missing. The foundation's name incorporates her initials but also stands for Just Ask Yourself to Care, reflecting her belief that individual compassion can create significant change. The foundation provides financial assistance to families dealing with the costs associated with searching for missing children, expenses that can quickly overwhelm families already dealing with emotional trauma. These costs include everything from printing flyers and hiring private investigators to covering travel expenses for families who need to search in multiple locations. When a child goes missing, families face not just emotional devastation, but also financial hardship, Dugard explained about her foundation's mission. The costs of searching can be enormous, and families should not have to choose between finding their child and paying their bills. The Jaycee Foundation also supports therapeutic programs for survivors of kidnapping and families of missing persons. Dugard understands that healing requires professional support, and she works to make such services accessible to those who might not otherwise afford them. Relationship with her daughters. During her captivity, Dugard gave birth to 2 daughters, fathered by her captor. Now adults themselves, both daughters have chosen to maintain relatively private lives while supporting their mother's advocacy work. Dugard has been open about the complex process of parenting children born under such circumstances. She has worked with specialized therapists to help both daughters understand their origins while building healthy identities separate from their father's crimes. My daughters are not defined by how they came into this world, Dugard stated in interviews. They are remarkable young women who have brought joy and purpose to my life. They have taught me that love can grow even in the darkest places. Both daughters have graduated from high school and pursued higher education. Dugard has supported their choices to step away from public attention while remaining involved in her foundation work behind the scenes. Writing and creative expression. Dugard has written 2 books about her experience and recovery. Her first memoir, A Stolen Life, published in 2011, focused on her captivity and the early stages of her recovery. Her second book, Freedom, My Book of Firsts, published in 2016, documented her experiences discovering basic freedoms that most people take for granted. Her writing process serves multiple purposes, providing therapy for herself, educating the public about the realities of long-term captivity, and offering hope to other survivors and their families. Writing helped me process experiences that were too big to understand all at once, Dugard explained. Each time I wrote about something, it felt like I was taking power back from it. Dugard's books have been praised for their honest portrayal of recovery as a gradual process that continues years after rescue. She does not present her healing as complete or linear, which mental health professionals note is more realistic and helpful for other survivors. Current daily life. Dugard has chosen to live relatively quietly, focusing on her foundation work and personal relationships. She maintains a small circle of close friends and continues therapy to process her experiences. She has been cautious about romantic relationships, focusing instead on building a strong sense of self and maintaining her connection with her daughters. In interviews, she has stated that while she remains open to finding love, she refuses to rush into relationships or feel pressured by others' expectations. I spent 18 years having no control over my life, Dugard reflected. Now I make my own choices about everything, including when and if I want to share my life with someone romantically. That freedom to choose is precious to me. Dugard enjoys simple pleasures that were denied to her during captivity, spending time outdoors, traveling, reading books of her own choosing, and eating foods she enjoys. She has spoken about the joy she finds in making basic decisions about her daily routine. Perspective on justice and forgiveness. Philip Garrido, Dugard's primary captor, died in prison in 2021 while serving a 431-year sentence. Nancy Garrido remains incarcerated, serving 36 years for her role in the kidnapping. Dugard has maintained that while she does not forgive her captors, she also does not allow hatred to consume her energy. She views her focus on helping others as a more productive use of her emotional resources than dwelling on anger. "I do not forgive them, and I do not think I ever will," Dugard stated. "But I also do not spend my days thinking about them. I choose to spend my energy on things that make the world better, not on people who made it worse." This perspective reflects the complex reality of survivor recovery, that healing does not require forgiveness of perpetrators, but rather the development of ways to move forward despite unresolved anger. Ongoing advocacy. Dugard regularly speaks at conferences for law enforcement professionals, sharing insights about how officers can better support survivors during rescue and recovery. Her feedback has influenced training programs across the country. She also works with legislators on bills designed to improve support for families of missing persons and survivors of long-term captivity. Her testimony has been instrumental in passing several pieces of legislation that expand resources for these populations. "My experience was terrible, but it also gave me knowledge that can help others," Dugard explained about her advocacy work. "If I can use what I learned to prevent other families from going through what mine did, or to help survivors heal more effectively, then something good comes from something bad." Abigail Hernandez was 14 years old when she disappeared while walking home from Kennett High School in North Conway, New Hampshire in October 2013. For 9 months, her kidnapper Nathaniel Kibbe held her captive in a storage container on his property. Today, at 26 years old, Hernandez has built a life that includes career success, motherhood, and a unique perspective on survival and forgiveness. The strategy that saved her life. What makes Hernandez's case particularly remarkable is the psychological strategy she employed to survive her captivity and ultimately secure her release. From the beginning of her ordeal, she made a conscious decision to try to form a bond with her captor. "I remember thinking to myself, okay, I got to work with this guy," Hernandez recalled in interviews. "I said, I do not judge you for this. If you let me go, I will not tell anybody about this. I told him, look, you do not seem like a bad person. Like, everybody makes mistakes. If you let me go, I will not tell anybody about this." This approach, which experts call psychological bonding or the Stockholm Syndrome approach, is recognized by law enforcement professionals as one of the most effective survival strategies for kidnapping victims. Former Federal Bureau of Investigation profiler Brad Garrett noted that Hernandez's instinctive response was textbook perfect. "If I were going to write a textbook about how victims should deal with abductions, the first chapter would be about Abby," Garrett explained. "It is always about bonding to the bad guy." Over the course of her captivity, Hernandez continued this strategy. Convincing Kibbe that they were friends rather than captor and victim, she helped him with his counterfeiting operation, engaged in conversations about his interests, and consistently reinforced the narrative that she cared about him as a person. The strategy ultimately worked when Kibbe faced potential arrest for his counterfeiting activities. Rather than killing Hernandez to eliminate a witness, he released her, trusting her promise not to reveal his identity to authorities. Current career and personal life. Today, Hernandez works as a licensed hairdresser, a career she chose because it allows her to have positive interactions with people while maintaining control over her schedule and environment. She finds satisfaction in helping people feel good about themselves through her work. "I love making people feel beautiful," Hernandez shared in interviews. "After spending so much time feeling powerless, it feels good to do something that makes other people happy." Hernandez is also a mother to a 3-year-old son. She has been open about the challenges of parenting while processing her own trauma, but describes motherhood as one of the most healing experiences of her recovery. "My son teaches me every day about living in the moment and finding joy in simple things," she explained. "Children do not carry the weight of the past the way adults do. Being with him reminds me to focus on the present." Hernandez has chosen to raise her son as a single mother, stating that she wants to focus on her healing and parenting rather than navigating romantic relationships at this stage of her life. Executive producer role. In 2022, Hernandez took on the role of executive producer for the Lifetime movie Girl in the Shed: The Kidnapping of Abby Hernandez, starring Lindsay Navarro, Ben Savage, and Erica Durance. This role allowed her to maintain control over how her account was told and ensure that the film served an educational purpose. Obviously, it is a weird experience to have this happen in the first place. Hernandez reflected about seeing her life adapted for television, and then to have it made into a movie is obviously like an even weirder experience. But ultimately, I did find it healing in a weird way just to have it out there. Working as executive producer required Hernandez to revisit her traumatic experiences in detail, but she found the process therapeutic rather than re-traumatizing. She was able to shape the narrative to focus on survival strategies and recovery rather than sensationalizing the violence she endured. Lindsay Navarro, who portrayed Hernandez in the film, worked closely with her throughout production. She was so open and compassionate and ready to answer anything that I asked her, Navarro explained. She blew me away with just her character. I was so blown away by how loving she was and how intentional she was. Philosophy of forgiveness. Perhaps most remarkably, Hernandez has chosen to forgive her captor Nathaniel Kibbe, who was sentenced to 45 to 90 years in prison for his crimes. She addressed him directly during his sentencing hearing. "Some people might call you a monster, but I have always looked at you as human," she told Kibbe in court, "and I want you to know that even though life became a lot harder after that I still forgive you." This decision to forgive was not made lightly or quickly. Hernandez worked with therapists to process her feelings and came to the conclusion that forgiveness served her healing process better than holding on to anger. Forgiveness does not mean that what he did was okay, Hernandez clarified in interviews. It means that I am not going to let what he did continue to hurt me. I forgive him for my own peace, not for his benefit. Mental health professionals note that Hernandez's approach to forgiveness is sophisticated and healthy. She maintains clear boundaries about the unacceptability of Kibbe's actions while choosing not to carry the emotional burden of hatred. Advocacy and speaking. While Hernandez maintains a relatively private life compared to some other survivors, she occasionally speaks at events focused on personal safety and trauma recovery. Her presentations often focus on the psychological strategies that helped her survive and the importance of trusting one's instincts in dangerous situations. "I want people to know that you can survive things that seem impossible," Hernandez explained about her speaking engagements. "But more than that, I want them to know that surviving is just the beginning. You can build a good life after trauma." Hernandez emphasizes that her survival was not just a matter of luck, but involved active decision-making and psychological strategy. She encourages audiences to think about how they might respond in dangerous situations and to trust their ability to adapt and survive. Current perspective on recovery. More than 10 years after her rescue, Hernandez describes her recovery as ongoing but positive. She continues therapy and has built a strong support network of family and friends who understand her experience. "I do not feel as scared anymore," she shared in recent interviews. "I still have days that are harder than others, but I know now that I can handle difficult things. I proved that to myself." Hernandez credits her faith, therapy, and the support of her family as crucial elements in her healing process. She also notes that having her son has given her a sense of purpose and hope for the future that transcends her traumatic past. "Every time I go outside now, I really try to appreciate sunlight and fresh air," Hernandez reflected. "It really went in my lungs differently after I was rescued. I really try to never take that for granted." Colleen Stan was 20 years old in May 1977 when she decided to hitchhike from Eugene, Oregon to Northern California for a friend's birthday party. She would spend the next 7 years locked in a box underneath Cameron and Janice Hooker's bed, emerging in 1984 as one of the most extreme survival cases in modern history. Today, at 67 years old, Stan lives quietly, but occasionally shares her insights about survival and recovery. Life after captivity. Stan's rescue in August 1984 was facilitated by Janice Hooker, who eventually helped her escape and later testified against her husband in exchange for immunity. Cameron Hooker was convicted of sexual assault and kidnapping and received a 104-year sentence, where he remains today. Unlike some other survivors who have become public advocates, Stan has chosen a relatively private life focused on personal healing and family relationships. She occasionally speaks at events or participates in documentaries about her case, but she maintains strict boundaries about her public exposure. "Your life is just kinda in limbo when you are in captivity, and once you get that freedom back and you have that choice again, it is just like the gates open," Stan explained in one of her rare interviews in 2016, "and you just run for it." This quote captures Stan's philosophy about recovery, that freedom is about having choices, and healing involves learning to make those choices without the fear that dominated her captivity. The psychology of extreme survival. Stan's case has become a subject of study for psychologists and criminologists because of the extreme nature of her captivity and her ability to maintain her sanity during 7 years of confinement. She was kept in a wooden box for up to 23 hours per day, a level of sensory deprivation that often causes permanent psychological damage. Mental health professionals who have studied her case note that Stan employed several psychological strategies that likely contributed to her survival. She maintained hope by setting small goals for herself, created mental exercises to keep her mind active, and developed a form of meditation that helped her cope with the physical discomfort of confinement. Stan has been reluctant to discuss the specific details of these strategies in public, preferring to keep some aspects of her experience private. However, she has occasionally shared insights that have helped other survivors of extreme trauma. "I learned that my mind was stronger than my circumstances," Stan reflected in interviews. "Even when I could not control anything about my physical situation, I could still control some of my thoughts and feelings. That kept me from giving up." Current daily life. Stan currently lives in a small community where she maintains a quiet lifestyle focused on simple pleasures that were denied to her during captivity. She enjoys gardening, reading, spending time with family, and engaging in outdoor activities that allow her to appreciate natural light and fresh air. She has been married and has children, though she keeps details about her family life private to protect their privacy. Stan has stated that building intimate relationships after her experience required extensive therapy and patience from her loved ones. "Learning to trust again was probably the hardest part of recovery," Stan shared. "Not just trusting other people, but trusting my own judgment about situations and people. That took years to develop." Stan continues therapy decades after her rescue, viewing it as an ongoing part of maintaining her mental health, rather than a temporary intervention. She advocates for long-term therapeutic support for all survivors of extreme trauma. Contributions to understanding trauma. While Stan maintains her privacy, she has occasionally worked with researchers studying the long-term effects of extreme captivity. Her case has contributed to understanding about resilience factors that help some individuals survive extreme circumstances. Researchers have noted that Stan's ability to maintain hope, her development of internal coping mechanisms, and her eventual willingness to seek professional help all contributed to her successful recovery. Her case has informed treatment approaches for other survivors of extreme trauma. Stan has also occasionally consulted with law enforcement agencies about cases involving similar types of captivity. Her insights into the psychology of both captors and victims have helped investigators understand the dynamics of extreme abuse cases. Perspective on justice and healing. Stan maintains that justice and healing are separate processes that do not necessarily depend on each other. While she is satisfied that Cameron Hooker remains in prison, she does not define her recovery by his punishment. "Justice is important, but it is not what heals you," Stan explained. "Healing comes from the choices you make every day about how you want to live your life. Justice can give you peace of mind, but it cannot give you happiness. You have to create that for yourself." This perspective reflects a sophisticated understanding of trauma recovery, that while accountability for perpetrators matters, survivors must focus on building positive lives, rather than waiting for external validation to feel whole. Rare public appearances. When Stan does make public appearances, she focuses on messages of hope and resilience rather than detailed accounts of her trauma. She emphasizes that recovery is possible even from extreme circumstances, but that it requires professional support, personal commitment, and time. "I want people to know that you can survive things that seem impossible and go on to have a good life," Stan stated during a rare speaking engagement. "But I also want them to know that healing takes time and help. You do not have to do it alone, and you should not expect to do it quickly." Stan's measured approach to public advocacy reflects her understanding that sharing trauma carelessly can be re-traumatizing for both speakers and audiences. When she does speak publicly, she focuses on practical advice and hope rather than graphic details. Legacy of survival. Stan's case remains one of the most studied examples of extreme survival in psychology and criminology literature. Her ability to maintain her humanity and eventually rebuild her life after 7 years of extreme abuse provides hope for other survivors and insights for professionals working with trauma victims. "I do not think of myself as extraordinary," Stan reflected in interviews. "I think of myself as someone who did what I had to do to survive, and then did what I had to do to heal. Anyone in that situation would try to do the same thing." This humble perspective masks the remarkable psychological strength required to survive Stan's ordeal and build a meaningful life afterward. Her quiet resilience continues to inspire other survivors and inform professional understanding of trauma recovery. The impact of these survivors extends far beyond their individual recovery processes. Each has created networks of support, advocacy organizations, and educational resources that help other families and survivors navigate similar challenges. Their collective work has changed how law enforcement, mental health professionals, and society respond to cases of kidnapping and long-term trauma. Support networks between survivors. One of the most powerful aspects of the survivor community is the informal support network that exists between individuals who have experienced similar traumas. Elizabeth Smart, for example, reached out to Jamie Kloss shortly after her rescue, offering support and understanding that only another survivor could provide. "I remember feeling so alone after I was rescued," Smart reflected about her early recovery period. "I thought no one could understand what I had been through. Now, when someone like Jamie is rescued, I want them to know they are not alone." These peer support relationships often provide different benefits than professional therapy. Survivors can offer practical advice about navigating media attention, dealing with legal proceedings, and managing the long-term effects of trauma. They also provide living proof that recovery is possible. The Cleveland survivors have maintained contact with each other while pursuing separate paths, creating a model for how shared trauma can strengthen relationships without defining them. They occasionally appear together at events or support each other's individual advocacy efforts. Impact on law enforcement training. Multiple survivors have worked with law enforcement agencies to improve training about how to interact with rescued victims and families of missing persons. Their insights have led to significant changes in protocols and procedures. Gina DeJesus regularly trains law enforcement officers about how to engage with families during missing person investigations. Her feedback has helped departments understand that families need both emotional support and practical assistance during searches. "Officers would ask my family if we needed anything, but we did not even know what we needed," DeJesus explained about her family's experience. "Now we teach officers to offer specific help. Help with flyers, help with media, help with basic things like making sure people are eating and sleeping." Elizabeth Smart has consulted with the Federal Bureau of Investigation about interview techniques for rescued children. Her experience being questioned immediately after her rescue has informed new approaches that prioritize victim comfort while still gathering necessary information. These training programs have been implemented in hundreds of law enforcement agencies across the country, potentially affecting how thousands of future cases are handled. Legislative changes. Several survivors have testified before legislative bodies, leading to changes in laws related to missing persons cases, victim support, and trauma recovery resources. Jaycee Dugard's testimony was instrumental in passing California's Jaycee's Law, which increases penalties for kidnapping and requires more comprehensive background checks for individuals working with children. Similar legislation has been adopted in other states. Elizabeth Smart has supported federal legislation that improves coordination between law enforcement agencies in missing children cases and increases funding for victim support services. These legislative changes create systemic improvements that benefit future victims and their families, extending the impact of individual survivor advocacy efforts. Educational resources and awareness campaigns. The survivors have collectively created a substantial library of educational resources that help families, professionals, and communities better understand kidnapping, trauma, and recovery. Amanda Berry's media work keeps missing persons cases in public awareness, while her visibility as a survivor demonstrates that rescue and recovery are possible. Her daily television segments have helped solve several missing person cases by keeping them in the public eye. The books written by multiple survivors provide detailed accounts of both trauma and recovery that serve educational purposes for families, survivors, and professionals. These resources fill a gap in available literature about long-term captivity and its aftermath. Mental health professional training. Several survivors have worked with mental health professionals to improve treatment approaches for trauma survivors. Their insights have led to new therapeutic techniques and a better understanding of the long-term recovery process. Michelle Knight's work with animal-assisted therapy programs has contributed to understanding about how relationships with animals can support healing from trauma. Her advocacy has led to expanded access to these programs for other survivors. The survivors' emphasis on recovery as a long-term process rather than a quick resolution has influenced how mental health professionals approach treatment planning and set expectations with clients. Prevention education. Multiple survivors have focused their advocacy efforts on prevention education, working to provide children and families with tools to avoid dangerous situations while maintaining their ability to trust and engage with the world. Elizabeth Smart's foundation develops educational programs that teach children about personal safety without creating excessive fear. These programs are used in schools and community organizations across the country. We cannot protect our children by making them afraid of everything, Smart explained about her prevention work. We protect them by giving them the tools they need to recognize dangerous situations and the confidence to seek help when they need it. International impact. The advocacy work of these survivors has extended beyond the United States to influence international approaches to missing persons cases and survivor support. Elizabeth Smart has worked with international organizations focused on combating human trafficking and child exploitation. Her insights about recovery from long-term captivity have informed support programs in multiple countries. The documentation of their recovery processes has contributed to international research about trauma resilience and post-traumatic growth, influencing therapeutic approaches worldwide, creating hope for other families. Perhaps the most significant impact of these survivors is the hope they provide to families of missing persons and other survivors. Their visible recovery and success demonstrates that healing is possible even after extreme trauma. When families see that we have built good lives after what we went through, it gives them hope that their loved one can recover too, explained Gina DeJesus. And when other survivors see our success, it shows them that they can build something positive from their experience too. This hope factor cannot be quantified, but it represents a crucial element in both family resilience during missing person cases and survivor motivation during recovery processes. What separates these survivors from others who might not recover as successfully from similar traumas? Research in psychology, neuroscience, and trauma studies provides insights into the factors that contribute to resilience and post-traumatic growth. Psychological resilience factors. Mental health professionals have identified several psychological characteristics that appear to contribute to successful recovery from extreme trauma. Many of these survivors demonstrate multiple resilience factors that likely contributed to their ability to not just survive but thrive after their experiences. Cognitive flexibility. All of these survivors demonstrated remarkable cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt their thinking and behavior to changing circumstances. Abby Hernandez's decision to befriend her captor, Elizabeth Smart's ability to maintain hope during 9 months of captivity, and Colleen Stan's development of internal coping mechanisms all represent adaptive thinking under extreme stress. Dr. Lisa Butler, a trauma researcher at the University of California, explains that cognitive flexibility allows individuals to find meaning in their experiences and develop effective coping strategies even in impossible situations. These survivors did not just endure their experiences passively, Dr. Butler noted. They actively problem-solved, adapted their strategies, and maintained agency even when their physical freedom was completely restricted. Sense of purpose. Each survivor has developed a strong sense of purpose that extends beyond their personal recovery. This sense of purpose, whether through advocacy work, helping other families, or preventing similar crimes, appears to contribute significantly to their long-term well-being. Research by Dr. Viktor Frankl and others has demonstrated that finding meaning in suffering can transform traumatic experiences from purely destructive events into catalysts for personal growth and contribution to society. When survivors can use their experience to help others, it transforms their identity from victim to helper, explained Dr. Patricia Resick, a trauma researcher at Duke University. This transformation is often crucial for long-term recovery. Social support systems. All of these survivors have emphasized the importance of strong social support systems in their recovery. However, research shows that the quality of support matters more than the quantity. Dr. Judith Herman, a leading trauma researcher, notes that effective support systems provide both emotional validation and practical assistance while respecting survivors' autonomy and choice-making ability. These survivors have been fortunate to have families and friends who supported their recovery without trying to control it, Dr. Herman observed. They were given space to heal at their own pace while knowing help was available when needed. Post-traumatic growth. The concept of post-traumatic growth, the idea that individuals can experience positive psychological change following trauma, is clearly demonstrated in these survivors' lives. Research by Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Dr. Lawrence Calhoun has identified 5 areas where post-traumatic growth commonly occurs. Enhanced relationships. Many survivors report deeper, more meaningful relationships after trauma. They develop greater empathy, stronger bonds with supportive individuals, and clearer boundaries with those who are not helpful. Increased personal strength. Survivors often develop confidence in their ability to handle difficult situations. As Colleen Stan noted, "I learned that my mind was stronger than my circumstance." Greater appreciation for life. Multiple survivors have mentioned increased appreciation for simple pleasures and daily freedoms that others take for granted. Spiritual development. Many survivors experience changes in their spiritual or philosophical perspectives, often developing stronger faith or more complex understanding of meaning and purpose. New possibilities. Trauma can open new paths that might not have been considered otherwise. None of these survivors might have become advocates, authors, or media personalities without their experiences. Neurobiological factors. Recent neuroscience research has identified brain mechanisms that contribute to resilience and recovery from trauma. While individual brain structures and function vary, certain neurobiological factors appear to support successful adaptation to extreme stress. Prefrontal cortex function. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation, appears to play a crucial role in trauma survival and recovery. Individuals with strong prefrontal cortex function are better able to maintain rational thinking under stress and develop effective coping strategies. Neuroplasticity. The brain's ability to form new neural connections throughout life. Neuroplasticity contributes to recovery from trauma. Therapy, positive relationships, and meaningful activities can help rebuild neural pathways that support healthy functioning. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a leading trauma researcher, emphasizes that recovery involves rewiring the brain through positive experiences and therapeutic interventions. Stress response systems. Individual differences in stress response systems affect how people react to and recover from trauma. Some individuals have naturally more resilient stress response systems, while others can develop resilience through therapeutic interventions and lifestyle changes. Environmental factors. While individual characteristics matter, environmental factors also significantly influence recovery outcomes. These survivors have benefited from several environmental advantages that supported their healing. Access to quality mental health care. All of these survivors have had access to quality mental health services, often including specialized trauma therapy. This access is not available to all trauma survivors, highlighting the importance of improving mental health resources. Family and community support. Each survivor has emphasized the crucial role of family and community support in their recovery. Their families provided consistent love and support while respecting their autonomy and healing process. Legal justice. While survivors emphasize that justice does not equal healing, the fact that their perpetrators were caught and punished likely contributed to their ability to move forward. Knowing that their abusers cannot hurt others provides peace of mind that supports recovery. Economic stability. Recovery from trauma is easier when basic needs are met. These survivors have had sufficient economic resources to access therapy, take time for healing, and pursue advocacy work without worrying about survival. Media and public response. The generally supportive media and public response to these cases has likely contributed to survivor recovery. When society responds to survivors with compassion rather than blame, it supports their healing process. Individual variation. While these factors contribute to resilience, it is important to note that recovery looks different for every individual. Some trauma survivors heal by becoming public advocates, while others recover by building quiet, private lives. Some find meaning through helping others, while others find it through art, family, or spiritual practice. Dr. Judith Lewis Herman emphasizes that there is no right way to recover from trauma, and comparing survivors to each other can be harmful. Each person's path to healing is unique, Dr. Herman explained. What matters is not how someone recovers, but that they find a path forward that allows them to reclaim their life and sense of self. As we reach the conclusion of these remarkable journeys, several powerful themes emerge that speak to the extraordinary capacity of the human spirit to not just endure, but transform even the most devastating experiences into forces for good. The power of choice. Perhaps the most striking common element among all these survivors is their emphasis on choice. After having their freedom stripped away, they have rebuilt their lives around the principle of making their own decisions about everything from career paths to relationships to levels of public engagement. Jaycee Dugard's insistence on taking relationships at her own pace, Colleen Stan's careful boundaries around public appearances, and Hernandez's decision to forgive her captor all represent acts of reclaiming personal agency. Their recovery has been defined not by what happened to them, but by the choices they have made since. Freedom is not just about being physically free, Elizabeth Smart reflected. It is about having the power to make choices about your life. Every choice I make now, even small ones, is an act of taking back my power. Transformation of pain into purpose. Each survivor has found ways to transform their suffering into meaningful contributions to society. Rather than allowing their trauma to become purely destructive, they have channeled their experiences into advocacy, education, and support for others. Amanda Berry's work keeping missing persons cases in the public eye, Gina DeJesus' comprehensive support for searching families, Michelle Knight's animal rescue advocacy, Elizabeth Smart's child safety education, Jaycee Dugard's foundation work, Abby Hernandez's speaking engagements, and Colleen Stan's occasional contributions to understanding extreme trauma all represent different ways of creating meaning from suffering. This transformation appears to be crucial for their long-term well-being. Research in post-traumatic growth supports the idea that finding ways to help others often becomes a central part of healing for trauma survivors. The importance of time. All of these survivors emphasize that recovery is not a destination but an ongoing journey. They reject the narrative that healing should happen quickly or follow a predictable timeline. Instead, they model patience with themselves and the understanding that some aspects of recovery continue for years or even decades. People want to hear that you are over it or back to normal, Michelle Knight observed. But there is no going back to who you were before. You become someone new, and that takes time to figure out. This realistic approach to recovery helps other survivors understand that struggling with long-term effects of trauma does not represent failure or weakness. Redefining strength. These survivors have expanded our understanding of what strength looks like. Their courage is not just in surviving their ordeals, but in the daily choices to continue healing, to help others, and to remain open to love and joy despite their experiences. Strength, for these survivors, includes seeking therapy, setting boundaries, asking for help, and acknowledging ongoing struggles. It includes choosing forgiveness when it serves healing, and choosing anger when it provides motivation for change. The ripple effects of survival. The impact of these individuals extends far beyond their personal recovery. Their advocacy work has changed laws, improved law enforcement training, enhanced mental health treatment approaches, and provided hope for countless other families and survivors. Their visibility demonstrates to society that people can recover from even extreme trauma, challenging stigmas and misconceptions about victimhood and resilience. They have shown that survivors can be powerful advocates for change, rather than just recipients of sympathy. The role of support systems. While these survivors demonstrate remarkable individual strength, they all emphasize that recovery required support from others. Their families, friends, therapists, and communities provided crucial assistance that enabled their healing. This highlights the collective responsibility to support trauma survivors and the importance of building communities that respond to tragedy with compassion and practical assistance rather than judgment or avoidance. Hope as a choice. Perhaps most remarkably, these survivors have chosen hope, not naive optimism that ignores the reality of their experiences, but mature hope that acknowledges suffering while maintaining faith in the possibility of healing and meaning. Hope is not about pretending that bad things do not happen, Jaycee Dugard explained. Hope is about believing that good things can still happen, even after the worst things already have. A living testament. These 7 individuals serve as living proof that the human spirit possesses extraordinary capacity for resilience, growth, and contribution even after experiencing the unthinkable. Their lives demonstrate that while trauma leaves lasting marks, it does not have to determine the trajectory of an entire existence. They have transformed from victims into survivors, from survivors into advocates, and from advocates into beacons of hope for others facing similar challenges. Their continued healing and contribution to society represent ongoing victories over the forces that tried to destroy them. Each day they choose to move forward, to help others, to find joy in simple pleasures, and to build meaningful lives represents a triumph of human spirit over human cruelty. They remind us that while we cannot always control what happens to us, we retain the power to choose what we do with our experiences. Their accounts are not just tales of survival. They are roadmaps for transformation, guides for healing, and proof that even in our darkest moments, the possibility for light remains. They show us that recovery is possible, that meaning can be found in suffering, and that the strongest among us are often those who have faced the worst and chosen to keep moving forward. As these remarkable individuals continue their journeys of healing and contribution, they carry with them the hopes and gratitude of countless others whose lives have been touched by their courage. They remind us that resilience is not about avoiding difficulty, but about finding ways to transform difficulty into strength, isolation into connection, and despair into hope. Their lives continue to unfold, each day bringing new choices, new opportunities to help others, and new affirmations that the human capacity for healing and growth knows no bounds. They are not just survivors, they are examples of what becomes possible when we refuse to let our worst experiences write the final chapters of our lives. The extraordinary journeys of Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, Michelle Knight, Elizabeth Smart, Jaycee Dugard, Abby Hernandez, and Colleen Stan remind us that the human spirit possesses an incredible capacity to transform even the darkest experiences into powerful forces for good. Their accounts of survival, recovery, and advocacy demonstrate that while trauma may leave lasting marks, it does not have to define the rest of our existence. If these remarkable tales of resilience and transformation have moved you as much as they have moved us, make sure to subscribe to Criminal Mind Cortex for more incredible true crime accounts that celebrate the strength of the human spirit and the power of survival. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest investigations into cases that prove hope can emerge from even the most challenging circumstances, and discover more inspiring examples of how ordinary people overcome extraordinary adversity to build meaningful, impactful lives.